In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Elden Ring Nightreign. If you haven't heard, at the Game Awards, FromSoftware and Bandai Namco unveiled that there is going to be a spin-off of Elden Ring. It's a standalone title that focuses on cooperative action-adventure play. And in this video, we're going to go through that trailer that was released and talk about everything that we've learned. There have been several interviews of people that have got to play the game, mostly press outlets. We're going to go through what we learned from that as well and kind of fill you in on what exactly this game is. So the first thing that we know about the game is it's very heavily cooperative based, meaning that you're supposed to take on the game with up to 2 other players. And in fact, if you look through the gameplay footage, you can see that they have similar characters in just about every scene, and just about every scene has more than one character. So the game has a heavy focus on playing through the game and probably playing with like your friends. It does seem like you'll probably be able to play with random players as well, but I think there's going to be more of a focus with Nightreign on playing cooperatively with people you know rather than just picking up randoms in general, although probably you still can. And because you see a lot of similar looking characters in each scene, and each one of them seems to have like a very distinct appearance, they seem to have very distinct skills. It's like the Hawk character like flying up in the air and crashing down, another character like jumping up and slamming, one character doing like a charge shot with their bow. A lot of people have been theorizing that this is going to be like a hero-focused game, or that players will be able to select from a roster of characters and play one of them, and that does seem to be indeed the case. If you look on the Bandai Namco website, it does say that you're going to pick from specific characters with different skills and abilities that seem to progress as you move through the game. And if you look at some of the interviews, it sounds like there were 4 playable characters in the build that they played. One of them was like an all-around hero that had a balance between speed and attack power. There was a Guardian-type character that was kind of tanky with heavy attacks. The Duchess was nimble and fast with a quick-step ability, and the Recluse was a mage type with ranged magical attacks. I think from what I read that there were supposed to be 8 characters in total, so this would be half of them that are playable in the game. And one thing that was mentioned is that it seems like the game was designed with future updates to be able to add more characters to choose from and play with. And it does look like the game is going to take place in the Elden Ring universe, or more specifically, a densely packed alternate reality chunk of Limgrave. So it seems like you're going to be playing inside the Limgrave zone, and it's going to be like a lot of, different things than we would normally see in the very base game of Elden Ring, with, different placements of castles and forts and things like that, lots of enemies. So you should be kind of familiar with the area and the look of the area, but it's going to be different than you remember. And it seems like the general structure of the game follows a 3-day cycle, with each day taking roughly about 15 minutes to complete. So theoretically, one gameplay session is going to take you 45 minutes. And at the beginning, you're going to be able to start out and head in any direction that you want to go. You can pin things on the map and go explore, prove your character by finding gear or leveling up, improving your abilities, etc. But as the game turns to night, apparently things get dicier, the game gets harder, there's like something called like an acid rain that appears, and it seems like the map shrinks more and more until there's a point where you get a random boss summons and you face that boss. So once you defeat that boss, my understanding is that the day and night cycle will repeat, being able to explore once again. With night closing in, things get dicey and shrink, and then you fight a second boss that's harder, and then this repeats again for a third boss. And again, these bosses are randomized. Some of them have been said to be bosses from Elden Ring, like the Demi-Human Queen, or Demi-Human Swordmaster, or the Draconic Tree Sentinel. You're not sure which boss you're going to get. There's also new bosses besides ones that have been shown in Elden Ring. So there will be new bosses. It's not just old bosses. But something interesting is you see the Nameless King as one of the bosses in here, which makes me wonder if we won't see returning bosses from Dark Souls 3 or maybe some of the other Souls games as well. And something you may notice in the gameplay almost immediately when looking at it is that characters move differently in Elden Ring Nightreign than they do in the base game. They can move way, way more quickly. They can sprint fast even in boss fights. Apparently there is no equip load or weight management in the game, and this allows you to just move at top speed all the time, kind of like Sekiro or something like that. You also see a character that kind of like jumps off a wall, grabs onto a ledge, etc. So exploration is going to be much faster. I think the idea here is they want you to be able to explore a lot before night falls, and you can't explore as much and you get into a boss fight. So by moving quickly and eliminating equip load late, you're going to be able to be at top speed all the time. And another thing that was mentioned about player characters compared to Elden Ring is that it seems like they have skills and ultimate skills that may have cooldowns instead of like a resource, that they need in order to cast. So you're not going to be able to spam them. Each character supposedly also has an ultimate attack that they can use. So you're going to use those at timely moments. And my guess is, a big part of this game is going to be, using your resources or using these like ultimate skills at the right moment, holding your health flasks for the right moments, etc. So as a team, you're going to have to collectively decide like when's the best moment for each character to use their ultimate attack. And if you're starting to think that this game sounds a little bit like a roguelike, I think that's pretty spot on. From what I've seen so far from the interviews and stuff, people are describing the game as a roguelike where you do a run, and then if you successfully complete it, then you do another run. And it seems like there are 8 like major bosses in the game or something like this, where after you get to the third night, the final boss that you face will be, whatever highest one you haven't defeated yet. And then, you'll continue progressing forward through the game like that. So if you hear that, the game itself is quite a bit different than Elden Ring. Like it's obviously set in the same universe, has similar itemization and weapons and things like that. And obviously some of the weapon skills, whatever. But it is a completely different type of game than we've seen in Elden Ring and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. And another thing that was mentioned is that new weapons in the game are either found in treasure chests or from drops after fights. So it seems like they're going to be a bit randomized in your playthrough. And from what I understand, people were saying this system is either kind of like Destiny or kind of like Diablo in terms of the itemization. Doesn't sound like each run is going to have the same items or weapons for you to find. It may be that there are like a variety of different possible ways the map could load, and maybe they're in the specific places if you get that map loadout. I don't know for sure. But it does sound like the weapons and stuff are going to be somewhat randomized. Now, this is where the game gets interesting, in my opinion, because FromSoftware has come out and said that this is not a live service game, that it's not going to be like any battle pass or microtransactions or anything like that. But from some of the impressions people had, it sounded like, again, that the game was poised to, maybe add more bosses over time, or maybe add more heroes or more characters that you can play through the game with. So it's possible that there will be like downloadable content or expansions to this game in the future that add more of that to kind of mix up the randomization a bit more or something like that. And I really don't know what to make of this so far. It sounds interesting from the way that it's laid out. I mean, I love Elden Ring. I can't get enough Elden Ring. It's my favorite game of all time. I'll say that hands down. So I'm curious to see how this is. I do like roguelike games, and I like games like Curse of the Dead Gods or Raven's Watch, where you pick heroes and you have to survive and take on bosses, and it's difficult and it gets more and more challenging. So I kind of think I'm intrigued by this mashup of different game mechanics, but it's kind of yet to be seen how well it will work. I mean, FromSoftware is the best in the business at what they do, so I'm not really worried about the quality of the game. I'm simply wondering, will it work in this type of setting? I mean, theoretically, it should. And even if I probably would have preferred like Elden Ring 2 or a prequel to Elden Ring, I think this is still definitely a game that's going to be very, very interesting. I think what I'm really curious about is the longevity of this game compared to something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Like, are people still going to be playing it years and years afterward? Is it going to keep getting updates? Are people going to burn out on it? Is it going to have PvP? It doesn't sound like it from the way it's being designed. PvP typically extends the life of these games. So I have a lot of questions about this that I don't think are going to be answered immediately. The game is supposedly coming out in 2025. We don't have a release date yet. It's going to be available on PC, Xbox, last gen and current gen, and PlayStation, last gen and current gen. So it seems like it's going to be running on the same engine as Elden Ring. And we don't really know like anything else other than that. Like, when are we going to see more of this? Is there going to be, some sort of playtest or something like that in the future? We don't really know. So I don't know if it's going to come out in summer or fall. Like, I think you can expect that it's probably not going to come out in Q1 or anything like that, because we're so close to that now. We're probably not Q2. I think we're probably looking at, June, July, or at least those dates, or later than that. But I'm curious to know what you guys make of this so far. I know when you hear Elden Ring, you immediately get excited, but are you excited for a completely different type of Elden Ring, taking this setting and sort of some of the combat mechanics and weapons and skills and stuff like that, and setting it in a completely different type of game? Not everyone likes roguelikes or roguelites, but they're pretty popular in general as a genre. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Is this something that you're excited for, or are you a bit bummed out by it? Were you expecting something else? I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below.